Hi, I'm Callie, and I am building a website builder. By day, I'm a site reliability engineer at HashiCorp, and by night, I'm working on my full stack development skills. In today's video, we are going to go over how I set up my structured logging in my website builder. All right. Structured logging helps you because it gives you a structure to each of your logs, so that way you can query them later based on the attributes that you put into them. Say you want to know the username of the person that made the request to your application. If you just have a big old string with no structure to it, it would be really difficult to figure out who made that request if you're looking at thousands or millions of requests. You'd have to go through each one or know the username that you're looking for in order to query your log. But what if you had a field on your log, such as username? Then you could look at thousands or millions of logs and just say, hey, I'd like to look at the field username in the log type, whatever. Okay? If that doesn't make sense, that's okay. Hopefully we can get some examples as we go through this video. All right, I am writing my backend in Go. And in Go, you can see that I have set up a logger in my main function. All right. I'm using zerolog, and zerolog out of the box already comes up with a logger, but I wanted to customize my logger a bit, so I am using the new function, and then I'm passing in some different flags to make sure that my logger is exactly what I want. For example, I'm passing in no color false because I want my logs to have this pretty color so that way I can quickly scan them in the terminal and know what's going on during local development. I also want to make sure that I have a timestamp, and I want to make sure that I have a logger with context. So here is where I just set up my logger. I'm then passing my logger to the different parts of my application so I can make custom logs. One thing that's pretty cool that I'm doing is I'm using zerolog, and I am going to have some middleware here, which you can see by the router.use, that signifies I'm about to start some middleware, and I am passing my logger into this request logger function because I want a specific structured log for every type of request that's made. Let's take a look at that function. I'm passing in my logger, all right, and then essentially what I'm doing is anytime I get a request into my API, I am going to create a log event that has all of the information in it that I really, really want. And what's cool about this is it's a function, so I can just add event attributes to it as I have more need. So what's my need? First, I want to record the start time. My purpose for this is I want to know how long each request took. So I need to record when we're starting. Then I also want to get the path that's being requested and any query parameters that are being requested with it. I call the c.next function because I want the request to continue and finish. So if you remember, this is going to be used in middleware. In order to know when my request ends and what the status of that request is, I need to let the rest of the request finish. So the c.next says, go ahead, continue throughout the rest of the request, let it finish, and then I'm going to do some more logic on it. After the request finish, I can record the end time, and I can reconstruct the path in order to include any query parameters that were on the request. I'll start out with just a default info log saying the request was completed, but I'll check the status, and if the status is greater than 400, that means that we have an error. So I'll switch the event type to an error. You can see with Go, the way that you start out is this little dot here assumes the type of this, and then if you don't include the little colon, it is going to reassign this variable event. From there, username is really important to me because I want to know who is making the request. So if there is a username from that context, that request context, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and add it as an attribute to my event. I can then go ahead and add all of the additional fields to the log event. the method of the request, the path, which has the query parameters if they exist, the status, and the duration, which is going to be our end time minus our start time. And finally, the message. You can see here our message is going to be the string human readable part of the log, request completed. That's where we got it here. The duration is going to be that end time minus the start time. The method is going to be the method of the request, the path, and then we see the status as well. And we see it's an info because if we scroll up, you can see that we made it log or info, and we don't change it unless it's greater than 400, but the status is 200, so it stays in info. This timestamp here comes all the way up here from our default logger settings saying that, yeah, we'd like a timestamp. And you can see that right here, there's no specific user information that we have, so we do not have the username in the request. And that, my friends, is how you set up a structured logging. You'll see that I am passing it to different parts of my service too. So when I set up my auth service, I'm passing the logger. Let's take a look at some of the custom logs that we have there. I can easily call my logger that I passed in, and my service is going to return a class with logger in it. So I go ahead and say S because that's my service, .logger because I want the logger out of it. And then I'm creating an info log, and here is where I'm adding different methods to it. So I'm adding username and a message. I can also do that when I'm doing error messages, which is pretty cool too. You could do warn or debug as well. Hopefully this helped and gets you started on your structured log journey. Let me know what your thoughts are.